Welcome everyone to the inaugural podcast episode of the Alpha Jedi podcast. We are very excited today to have a very special guest. Ed Lattimore is with us today. How are you doing, sir?
I'm fantastic, man. How are you?
Doing great, doing great. Enjoying some good weather today and some good company. Getting ready to
Oh,
chat.
yeah. What part of the world are you in right now?
So I'm in Los Angeles, California.
Oh, you guys always have good weather, man. That's not.
Exactly. That's why it costs so much to live out here because of the sun god Ra. We have to pay him an extra tax to make sure the
I
weather
lived
is great.
I lived in LA for 2 years, and it was on someone else's dime, but I could not afford to. Well, I probably could now, but no, I really that is one thing I really enjoyed. That and the proximity to the beach, being able to just go. I spent a lot of time in Venice Beach, Santa Monica Pier, and then the what are those cities? Huntington, not Huntington, Manhattan Beach, Hawthorne Beach, Redondo, that whole area. So I really enjoyed my time in LA. I hope you do too. What part of LA are you in?
So I'm actually in the San Fernando Valley. That's
Oh,
where
okay, so you're
yeah,
okay. Farther north, like up past Burbank. I remember going past Burbank to get there. If
yeah,
that's right.
yeah, a little bit around there.
Yeah.
But I used to live out in the South Bay area, so but down by Marina Del Rey. I'm one of the
Oh, San Fernando. That's even okay. That's south. It's been a long time since I've been out there, as you can tell. That is a completely different part of LA than I was thinking of. So down yeah, Marina Del Rey, and all those areas. Okay, okay, cool. I know where that is too.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I do enjoy the city a lot. There's a lot of fun opportunity out here, as well as you just get a really nice, diverse mix of people coming in
Yeah,
and out every day. So keeps things interesting.
for sure, man.
So for people that may not know who you are, I just wanted to give a quick little bit of background. So you are a heavyweight boxer. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I'm currently a boxer, very soon to not be one, but it's unfortunate.
you're also an author. You've got
Yeah.
three books out, I believe.
Two or three. I don't really, in my mind, I only count not caring what other people think, but a lot of people count the four confidences. I don't count the four confidences because it was originally I wrote it as when I'm in my whole foray into this blog building area, I knew you had to write a freebie, so I guess I wrote one hell of a freebie because it ended up someone got a hold of it and was like, this is great, I'm going to make an animated video of it on my website. I was like, cool. And then he did that. And then this was right when I decided to sell it because I thought it was that good. And it really took off. So people got a lot out of that. But in my mind, I only have one book, but I guess I have two or three, you know?
Okay. Yeah. It's funny how that works out sometimes where you put something out there or you write it and you think like, oh, this is, kind of okay, or, I think this is something that's kind of fun. And then someone gets a hold of it and they really like it and really run with it. So you never know
Yeah,
exactly how you influence people.
which is fantastic.
And then you're also very recently graduated with a degree in physics.
Yeah, just graduated in May, man. It's over.
Congratulations. That's what put you into sort of that path? What was is it sort of been a lifelong passion of yours to pursue
Um,
or
you know what's funny? I remember that I made these. Then this is just like a side note I just remembered before we get to the path that put me here. I remember when I was in like high school, I made these like life goal cards, and one of them was to master calculus. And and I don't think I'm a master of calculus, but I'm certainly at least the advanced, maybe or upper intermediate level because of physics. And you know what? That was a goal I made like even when I was really bad at math, and I was for a long time. And I put a lot of energy into getting better, is evidenced by me, finishing this degree. But to answer the question how I got on that path, I decided at 27 I needed to go back to school because I didn't have any options. I mean nothing. If boxing didn't work out, I really had nothing. So I said, let me go do this, and then I did a lot of research on the top high or the top paying fields, and all of them had math in it. So I said, let me go back to school for math, and that was the goal. Except in the military, I enlisted to get money for school.
Hmm.
In the military, my MOS had me learn a lot of electronic theory. And so I said, you know what? I want to be an electrical engineer. So I went to school and I started the engineering classes. And one of those classes you have to take, the prereqs was physics. So I took physics and I said, no, this is what I really want to study. And so I found a program that had a joint engineering physics degree, and I ended up dropping the engineering part and just going completely with physics.
All right, very interesting. Yeah, it's funny how sometimes you go into a field thinking this is exactly what it is that I'm going to do, and then you come
And
out
then
the
it,
other
it
side.
goes completely. I mean, I was legit surprised. I was like, wow. And I'm really happy I did that because I learned so much science, so much that and then I didn't, and things I didn't even know in terms of how the fields are viewed and everything. I mean, I could easily, like, if I really wanted to get a job, I could go be an engineer somewhere, and no one would bat an eye. They'd be like, okay, cool. We'll just have to teach them specific ways to be an engineer. But physics gives you such a grounding in all the sciences, physics, chemistry, not so much biology because that's not really a science. You get a really strong math background. In fact, I have a math minor. All the physics students do because of how much math you have to take, and you come out pretty good at programming as well. So it's really nice that I'm really really happy I did this.
So at a group dinner now, everyone looks at you when they're trying to split out the bill.
Oh, you know what's funny? I didn't realize this till I went to pay. I went and just paid my phone bill and paid off a phone, and you get you get a, I think it's called numeracy, this sense of how numbers just work together, because I'm just sitting there moving faster than the girl who's got a calculator in front of her, and I'm not, and believe me, when I say I was a bad math student, that is not an exaggeration. I really put a lot of effort into improving my math to the level where I'd be able to study physics. It was not an easy path, and you just, but from dealing with numbers all the time, you just have a better sense of how things should, I guess, look. I think they call this chunking, and that's just what happens. You really do, kind of become that guy when you're like 15% of 38, and my brain immediately goes 3.8 plus 2 point, something in between, and so I know it's roughly 15% of 38 is roughly 5. Like I just know that without thinking about it. So these are just the ways your mind works, and it's from doing the thing for so long.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how when you get used to repetition or putting in a discipline for something, you kind of subconsciously train yourself in a way that you aren't really realizing it. So when you go out and you put yourself into a situation or scenario that's similar to what it is that you've been studying, everything just kind of snaps on autopilot and you just kind of don't realize what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, it's really cool, man. I'm really really happy that I can do these things, and I'm intelligent enough to like I guess my favorite part, like every now and then, not so much now that I'm out of school, at least I don't think it'll be. I'll look at a piece of math and I'll have no idea what the math is trying to accomplish. But I can read it and understand like it's like a language,
Hmm.
and you just look at it and go, oh, I can see how this translates into a physical space, and that's a really cool feeling.
So one of the things that, or one of the major reasons why I wanted to reach out to you and just kind of pick your brain a little bit is I follow you on Twitter, and I got to say you've got a lot of fun little quips and items and gold on there. But
Oh, thanks.
one thing that you're welcome. One thing that separates your Twitter kind of from a lot of them is that you kind of tell things very raw and unfiltered. You just sort of lay it all out there like it is. And I think one of my favorite tweets that you've come across is I've got this little notebook of quotes that I pull out from various sources and inspiration. So I jot them down every time I come across them. But one of them that made it into this book that I really liked a lot is the quote, "Mother Nature isn't a social justice warrior. She doesn't
Oh
care
yeah,
about
man.
fairness or feelings. All she cares about is if you can fuck or fight," which I thought
Right.
resonates really true. Could you elaborate a little bit more on sort of that particular quote and maybe what inspired that one?
Well, I never really know what inspired or something. No, that's not true. Sometimes I do. I can't remember what I was thinking about when I wrote that. But in terms of the idea, I mean, you have to remember at the end of the day, when you strip away all the fancy technology we have in medicine and advances, that we are still. I mean, we're just really, really smart animals. And I mean, granted, we're animals that can control these impulses and direct them to a greater thing than just, hunt, reproduce. But we're still animals. And at the end of the day, everything we do is driven by the need to satisfy our prime directive. There's the dork in me from Star Trek talking.
Yep.
But everything is done to satisfy our prime directive. We want to secure a mate to reproduce, and we want to make sure we procure resources for ourselves, the mate, and the said offspring. And the way you get resources, man, you fight for them. There's not really a nice way to get what you want in this world. Now, there are ways that are nice now because we have built this infrastructure and we've developed as a society to where at this point the trade, like I always say, we're never gonna, this generation and probably never again will we see a conflict between two real developed nations, because the trade-off, it costs more to fight than it does to negotiate. So, negotiation was always going to be the preferred route now, I think, between two powers in the world. But that's only because it makes more sense now than fighting. And people kind of, with intelligence comes the ability to weigh opportunity cost and trade-offs and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, that's what I call violence, stupid man's negotiation, because that's what we do, man. If you don't like it, you settle it. You got to remember, it was legal to duel for a long time. How primal and gangster is that? I mean, and not too long ago, if you and another man had a disagreement about a fact or about a thing or an outcome, rather than head down to the courtroom or God forbid look it up on Google, right, which wasn't even a thing.
Hmm.
Nah, you loaded up your pistols and you went outside and you handled it like
10 paces.
civilized savages, man. 10 paces, pop pop. So we can't forget that at the end of the day, it really does come down to who can get what, and not only when they get it, how they can use that to attract things to propagate and procreate.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really fascinating point is that when we look at nature and we look at the hierarchies that we see in nature, like when we see, you've got your kind of apex predators, or you're looking and within specific, animal groups, and you can see that there's clearly, the alpha of the group leading the rest of the pack, and then you've got the different hierarchies. We kind of, as a society, we look at these hierarchies and we see them as a mechanic of nature, and it's something that's there and it just functions. But when we look at actual human beings, we try to separate ourselves from that, and we don't apply the same rule set to ourselves. And I think that
Yeah.
is a little bit of a mistake in the sense that no matter what the dynamic is, there's going to be certain laws of nature that are going to translate through. You're going to have hierarchies. You're going to have kind of your alphas, and then sort of your betas, and then sort of the rest of the groups in there. And so I think that there's a lot from nature that we can learn, and I think a lot of the issues that we see today kind of come from the fact that we ignore that truth, so to speak, and we try and
Yes.
treat everyone as like, well, just by virtue of the fact that you're a person, everyone's automatically on sort of kind of this equal ground, equal footing, and we're trying to fight against the natural order, which is, hey, some people are going to be in the higher bits of the hierarchy, and other people are going to be in the lower bits, and not necessarily condoning dictators or anything like that, but
Obviously, yeah, like, because there's a point, there's a trade-off. When does it make sense
right.
versus when does the as they say, the cost exceed the value, right? And that's a very important thing to recognize. And I think like you're right. I mean, we've really forgotten that because it's so comfortable. The thing about it like this. Here's a practical example. We look at this whole anti-vaxxer movement.
Hmm.
How in the world do you think it's a good idea to not vaccinate your children? I understand there's nuances to the argument. Perhaps, it shouldn't just be called anti-vaxxer. That there are middle ground, like maybe not all the vaccines they schedule, whatever. But at the heart of it, the hardcore ones who say no vaccinations, the only way you could think that's a good idea is if you grew up in a society that was so advanced that it had eradicated the diseases, effectively eradicated the diseases you are now saying you don't want to vaccinate your children against.
Right.
Right? It's one of those things, man. People forget. Remember, we used to have, and we take it to a more abstract level, or at least a less quantifiable one. We used to have very clear rules for how men and women interacted, and then we had a nice golden era where there weren't any problems. We were like, oh, let's just push this envelope a little further. And now you have all this Me Too sexual harassment shit. Well, I mean, if you really look and break down what women wear to work, and I'm not saying women should or shouldn't work. All I'm doing is analyzing this. So anybody who listens to this podcast and says Ed was saying women need to be in the kitchen, it's not what I'm saying. Don't do that. What I'm saying is that if you look at if you look at how men assess women,
Hmm.
and then you look at what women wear to work, all they're doing, like all women, professional clothing, I put that in air quotes, man, it's just showing off ass and tits, but it's not doing it like a swimsuit. So, and then you're expected to be able to work. And then, Patrice O'Neal had a great quote about this. Having men and women work together is like having a grizzly bear work with a piece of salmon dipped in honey and expect a grizzly bear to behave normally. And look, I'm not saying they should or shouldn't be allowed to work together. What I'm saying is you get to a point where you forget that we did not do this for a while, and there might be a good reason. Progress for progress' sake is just as bad as tradition for tradition's sake.
Agreed.
You gotta weigh it out and see what makes the most sense to do. Some things you might want to just leave alone.
Well,
Some experiments you don't need to have.
Well, I think it kind of comes down to a bit what like Rollo and Christian McQueen were saying, and I actually know Christian. Highly enjoyed your interview podcast with him, and I've got a quote from that
Oh,
interview that I
thanks.
actually want to discuss about a little bit here. But I kind of agree with the point that they're saying that I think as a society, we're swinging the pendulum to a point where either you got to be really alpha and your game's got to be airtight. Otherwise, you're going to be, as a guy, you're going to be punished because
Yeah.
the preferred sort of default socially acceptable way of expressing any kind of sexuality has been a much more feminized way and relating to things in a much more feminine sense. So it seems like one of those things where, you know, I know there's a lot with the Me Too movement, and some of it seems like there's some legitimacy to it, but other of it seems like, well, a guy maybe hit on you and, it was something
Yeah,
harmless, but
like
it's like,
somebody, like obviously some of these dudes are out there just being straight savages, you know, truly abusing their positions. And as I always say, once again, man, to quote the great Patrice O'Neal, he said, if true rapists, fuck them dudes, they need to be buried under the prison. Dudes that are out there like snatching pussy, you know, but when there's these weird gray areas and it's like, okay, how do you deal with that? Well, a good way to deal with it is just to make sure it doesn't happen in the first place. But no one wants to hear that solution. They want to engineer people to be completely different. And further, they want to engineer men to be different.
right,
Notice it's not have women, dress or carry themselves differently. It's, men control yourself. And I'm like, don't
right,
you understand that half the reason that we speak English right now, if not the biggest reason, is because a bunch of dudes came over and said, I'm going to take that because I'm stronger. And once again, not saying it's right. I'm just saying, man, the nature of people. You gotta remember that box. You managed to get some shit back in Pandora's box. I guess is what I'm saying. We really did. Because remember, you used to be able to, remember the rule of thumb, man. You used to be able to
Oh
beat
yeah.
a chick, right? Well, so we managed to get some shit back in Pandora's box to where like it is truly considered heinous if you do it. But now it's like we're changing the polarity of what we put in there and we're re-releasing it, and they're like, and they don't understand, man. There's gonna be dire consequences when you start playing with the nature of men and women on any level. It seems like nature really abhors things a vacuum and and non-symmetry. So it's gonna find a way to balance things and put something where a thing has been taken away, and that's not good.
I agree, definitely. And I think because I work in the dating field, and so one of the interesting things that I see out there is sort of, especially in a super liberal place like California, is this notion that guys are inherently the problem. We need them to be more like women and relate to women more like women do in order to make them feel more comfortable. But then on the other side of the spectrum, the large complaint is that, women meet a lot of guys and they don't feel anything. They don't feel that sort of chemistry or that spark or anything like that. And so the number one question is kind of like, where have all the real men gone? And one of the things that I kind of jokingly say is that, well, an unintended consequence is that you've kind of turned them into women. And so
Right.
now you got this thing that you've, created. Now you got to live with it. Now the real question is, the guys that you find most attractive are always the guys that are the opposite of what it is that you're, trying to turn them into.
And it's really funny you say that because the game, right? At the end of the day, you got to remember. Well, I always talk about these prime directives, and that's just the dork in me again. But one of the dude's prime directives stems from a human beings, which is it will always take the path of least resistance,
Hmm.
which means guys are going to take the path of least resistance to sex. There's just no way around that. And so you got a lot of dudes who look around. That's the popularity. That's how dudes end up in the friend zone in the first place. Is that it's an easy way in, right?
Right.
If you told if a guy was convinced that going after it was easier, or he would do that, but he thinks the friend zone is safer because it doesn't expose him to risk and rejection. So, so when you get this setup where all these guys are kind of they've all decided the friend zone is the easiest way, the soft way to be. And then all of a sudden, the women are absolutely disgusted. They're like, "What happened? Where did they go?" Well. There was a time where dude was expected to excel to get a girl, but now why would I bust my ass when I see a busted dude, scoring with a girl I want to score when I get friend zoned?
Hmm.
To me, I mean, if that doesn't make me angry, and that's a whole other issue. It's certainly going to remove my drive for accomplishment because at the end of the day, right? Sex makes the world go round. There's a joke. I don't remember who said this joke, but it was, without tits, Alexander the Great would have been Alexander the Fuck It.
Absolutely. That's rich. I love it.
So,
No, I agree. I mean, and I think, there's that notion of, there's a fundamental difference between men and women, and that they're very different. And the way that we look at the world, process things are very different. They're very complementary systems. But I think part of the reason why we see a bit of a breakdown in that is that the guy's side has definitely been much more feminized. So the
oh,
job
for
that we're
sure.
supposed to do, we've abdicated a lot of that natural, hey, this is how we approach things. And so that's creating a large amount of imbalance. And I think that's where things like the Me Too movement can be kind of dangerous, because it looks like a bit of a modern witch hunt, where you take a case like Aziz Ansari and his whole thing, where The guy goes out, has a
Well, it
date.
sounds you know you that Aziz Ansari. It sounds like a rich famous dude with no game, right?
Right, exactly.
I mean that's what, and it sounds like a girl who said this rich famous dude should have some game at some point. I'm gonna stick around and see how this turns out. Oh shit,
Yep.
he really is, you know, a lame. It doesn't sound like he did anything crazy, you know, tasteless, sure,
Yeah.
bad game, absolutely, but is he a criminal? Absolutely not. You
Right.
know,
Right.
so
He's not a mind reader. He doesn't know exactly everything. It's like you're a full grown adult that if at
yeah,
any point in time,
if you come back, look, man, you knew she knew what it was. I mean, and you can't say these things because people decide automatically. They don't even think about the issue anymore. They just hear the setup, and they already decide who's right and who's wrong, right? And
right.
it's so difficult to have a discussion because I don't even you know it goes beyond feeling. People have just decided that certain issues you know, the man in question is guilty before proven innocent, and the woman is innocent before proven guilty. And barring and even when there is gross evidence, like obvious evidence that things were they got it wrong, the apology is never on par with the destruction done.
Oh, agreed.
You
Hands down, agreed. It's more of that kind of like, well, maybe it's okay, but it's always used to link back to a reinforcement of like, well, we really need to find, and root out the entire problem. And I think, it's funny because I read Rollo's blog quite a bit, and I'm like, all right, Rollo, I think you're a little bit maybe paranoid, but then I start to see a
you
lot of
see
things he's
some
talking
stuff, and
about, like,
you're
oh,
like, holy.
nope, nope.
And the problem is, man, look, as a guy, I mean, I think in my situation, we're gonna use like just you know, because I've been with the same girl now for 6 years, about what is it, 2018, so 5 to 6 years. And I'll tell you what, man, I think she's a great companion. I have a great time. I can't. I'm not interested in searching or finding somebody else. Right, one way or the other. This is my last relationship, is what I always say,
Hmm.
because of the way things are. Like if we break up, there ain't no way in hell I'm gonna get me another girl. It's certainly not one like that. I mean, maybe I get lucky, but I bring that up because you know when I first met her, I thought there was something wrong with her because she didn't act like all these crazy broads out here today. I thought there was something wrong with her, so I broke up with her. I'm like, and my mind got right. I was like, whoa, man, get it together. And you know, and you see these things, and if you know, and at that point, I don't think my SMB was particularly high. I
Hmm.
think I just had really good, you know, I had great potential in game, and fortunately, I've realized it more, so it's not like it's a bust. But if me with my awareness and my options at that point came to that conclusion about you know the few decent women that you do encounter, and the only reason you encounter decent women is because you, I mean, unless you get super effing lucky, uh, is because you had the patience to slog through this mess, and by slogging through this mess, your habits get changed, which make you more repulsive to the more quality. Even that's the best word I got for it. I don't really like that word.
Hmm.
To women of higher quality, you know, it really is a downward spiral for Western civilization. I really feel, and we don't understand. I think we're just now beginning to see the effects of this apocalypse. I mean, it's bad, man, in my opinion, anyhow. And this is this is a guy sitting on the sidelines a bit. I mean, I haven't had to go back out there in the trenches in a little while, and I'm not really interested. So I fully recognize that my opinion is from a guy who
Hmm.
is perched on the sidelines of the West. But at the same time, I mean, I'm 33, and I just spent a lot of time around kids in college, and these kids, man, they ain't got no
Well,
hope.
it's
Bad, man, it's bad.
It's like one of your tweets. If the message is valuable, the messenger is of no consequence. And I'm out there and definitely very much in the trenches. But I think you raise a really interesting point, which is one of the things that gets talked about in sort of the game community and the red pill community and all that um, that space is, the idea and notion of, all women are like that, and this, that, and the other, and a lot of time gets talked about, the negative things that come from interactions with women, but I don't feel that there's enough emphasis on the positive sides of in relationships or interactions with women, because I think the point in the entire red pill is to not only become the best man that you can be, but also to understand the mechanics of how intersexual relationships work, so that way when you're the best man you can be, you can experience the best that women have to offer. And I don't think that there's
Right.
enough spent on elaborating all the really good and great things that women do and that you can experience with women when
Oh,
you're a highly sexualized individual.
absolute freaking lutely, man. And I'll say this as a guy. Once again, man, I gotta highlight how fortunate I am. Like, I have no idea what the audience of this podcast will be. All I know is what's true for me, and I think that there are enough people who resonate, respect, or at least have heard of what I say to know. I don't drop BS. I just kick it real. And here's what I'll say. I am I consider myself very fortunate to have met the person I met who I'm with right now. And I say fortunate not because, it's hard to meet women. That's the easy part. Shit. And women literally everywhere. Half the population is one. The hard part is finding somebody who you like, not just the way they look, that's a given, but who you like spending time around and who has compatible values and vision for the future with you. And I think you don't end up with someone for freaking half a decade or more, just because you like the way they look. They got to bring a lot of other shit to the table.
Hmm.
And the way that happens, um, the way that happened for me, I mean, I really continued to improve as a dude. I was just talking to somebody about this today, that if I was the same person I was at 27, I have no idea where I'd be, but I know I'd probably be single. I just you don't bring anything to the table. So a lot of the red pill stuff is there's the angry side, when everybody comes in and they're like, fuck it all. And
Hmm.
then there's like this mid, enlightenment stage where you're like, fuck some of it. And then there's like the end goal where you're like, this is bullshit if you fall into it, but you got to work on yourself and development, and you really see it all. And I really know that as for guys to improve, for guys to do better, there has to be some kind of incentive. But right now, the incentive is trash. And then they get to a point where it'd have been nice if there was an incentive. Uh, you know, so it just creates this weird downward spiral. In other words, what I'm saying, I guess, is I consider myself one of the lucky ones for sure. Not just in terms, there's the ability that I put forth in my life, and the things that I invested in, but it's amazing what you can do when you're not chasing ass all the time, man.
No, I 100% agree. And I think, looking at my own game journey, I'm very grateful that I had a severe lack of game when I was younger, because I totally would have been that hardcore blue pill guy that would have married the wrong girl and would have stayed completely in it for all the wrong reasons. And so that was kind of, my early 20s. And then in my late 20s, I noticed like, the things that I was saying that I want and the things that I'm actually successful with aren't kind of lining up. Let me do some exploration here and, a
Yeah.
little bit of soul searching. So that's led me to where I'm at now. So now I'm 33, and my game is improved a thousandfold from where it was, and I'm just in a completely different mindset. But I also feel that I've been able to really enjoy women a whole lot more because
Yeah.
of where I've come from and where I'm at now. And I think that's, one of the things that a lot of guys kind of miss out on, is that they spend too much time focused on that, this is all the negative stuff that girls have to offer, but there is a whole flurry of amazing
Of
experiences that they
positive.
have to offer. That, I mean, it's amazing if you ever have a, girl, cook for you or go out of her way to get you something nice or do something really great for you. That's where I was always grateful for my first ever official girlfriend. She was an absolute great girlfriend in all senses of the word. She really, really took the time and effort to make it known that I was a top priority for her. And so that was something that I was always grateful for and won't ever forget. I had to break up with her because basically she kind of wanted to start a family. And at the time, that's just not where I was at. Uh,
Yeah, at some point, right? Like the compatible values. It's and
uh,
usually around year two, that stuff starts coming into play. It's like, do we, even if you don't know exactly how the future is going to go, do we have a similar plan for the future?
mhm.
And that's always important. That's always important. There's no way around that. That's just the level of compatibility. But like you said, the positives of women. I think that the problem or the catch is, a lot of us end up in this knowledge and in this space because of a bad experience, and we come to it bitter and we want power. I mean, that I remember. I'm just talking about me. I
Mhm.
remember I felt so damn powerless. I didn't had know what to do, and I felt like the girl had to choose me or whatever, and nothing. And then you get this power, and you're like, holy hell, this power is incredible. Let me wield this. But in wielding it, you kind of reinforce every negative view you had
Mhm.
about women. You know, Either they bend to your will and you prove they're all sluts, or whatever, or they don't bend to your will and they're bitches because they don't like you. Like, so there's no win when you're stuck in that space of anger. It's only when you for whatever reason. I mean, I've seen guys get out of that space different ways, and I know how I got out of that space. It was really meeting the girl I'm with now, just seeing it, like, and part of it was my timing in life too, outside of her. It's just seeing, there's really a lot of good that comes from a relationship with a woman that you can't get with a relationship with a dude. I mean, like on a regular practical level, I am not going to the symphony with none of my male buddies, man. That's not happening. And I love the symphony. Like, what are we gonna do? Get dressed up in tuxes and go hang out, together and have a meal and looking into each other's eyes and discuss all day? Like, no, that's for my girl, man. Like, now I'll go see a super movie with one of the homies, a superhero movie, right?
Right.
I might go to the amusement park, maybe, but no, not really. No, I mean, you need somebody to just kind of kick it and relax in a non-competitive manner. Like, bonding activities really is what you spend your time doing with your girl, and it brings you closer and it lets you see another more beautiful side of life. And a lot of guys are missing out on that. I feel.
Yeah, I say it's. I think we're in a very interesting space where we've got on the one side, women are getting shorthanded by because there's definitely being in the field and you deal with people, you see things like blue pill guys are super thirsty, they can be very creepy, and women have to put up with that. So I understand where the push to really try and curb that or change that, but I think we've gone about it the wrong way in the sense that now the approach that was taken was, well, these blue pill guys, they're very much, are the bane of our existence. Let's turn them into women, and then that will make them better. As opposed to, the real secret is that it's just guys, we got to be better at being guys so we can experience the best that women have to offer. Because the push pull dynamic between men and women that we have is that women are always going to react to who you are as a man. And so if you are someone that isn't a man or isn't sure footed, they're going to be like sharks and they're going to eat you alive. But if
Right.
you can handle your business, if you know what you're about and you know where you're coming from, then they're going to react to that. And then you'll see that there's going to be that sort of kind of equal footing. Um, so I think that's kind of where we got things a little bit lost in translation, is that as a society, we decided, well, we're just going to try and turn men more into women as opposed to, no, we need to train men to be better at being men. So that way, everything, the equilibrium can be reestablished.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just, At the end of the day, though, and here's what I believe. I got this crazy belief, man. It's a little crazy. Hear me out. Hear me out.
All right.
I think I think that what we see on the internet is, I don't want to say grossly exaggerated, but I do think that we see what we want to see, and then we see the counter to that, right?
Hmm.
So if I'm out looking for game stuff, I'm gonna see game stuff, but the only thing I'm gonna see in relation to that, I mean, you might catch some stuff on the periphery, but a lot of times you're gonna see, the counter to that,
Hmm.
and the opponents of that, the feminists, the white knights, whatever, right? But at the end of the day, I mean, I think if you just, if I was a guy and if I was like 21, right? I would just focus. I'd spend, whatever time lifting, working on myself, getting my money up, whatever, and going out, and I would still see women and how they respond to me, and I would not have a chance to get angry. Because at the end of the day, I think now a lot of this anger does come from guys in high school before they know what's going on, and we can trace that back to, weak fathers and in general the feminization
Hmm.
of the school system. But there is another generation of dudes. I would say guys born between the years like 90 to 95 ish,
Hmm.
maybe 96. A lot of those guys, they thought it was going to be one way, but it's the other way. And what are they doing though? I get falling for it, man. Like all of us fell for it, and that's how we ended up here. But what are you doing now that you know it ain't like the way you thought it was going to be?
Hmm.
And that 91 to 96 range, those guys would be in their late 20s right now, or mid to late 20s. Is that right? Yeah, yeah, 6 years younger than me. So yeah,
Yeah.
mid to late 20s, and so they get a choice. They can go keep chasing the female approval. We were just talking about this
Hmm.
yesterday on the podcast, with the whole Red Man group. They can keep chasing female approval,
Hmm.
or they can work on becoming a man of quality. Now, after you become a man of quality and you're about 28, if you still got trouble with women, either society's really messed you up, and no one's told you, like you need to get surgery or something to fix something in your face, or like, or you're in the wrong place. But either way, working on yourself, by the time you reach that age, you're gonna have resources. One of the biggest mistakes I made was I spent my early 20s chasing female approval in different shapes and form, ways, shape, and form. That's one of the reasons I drank so much, because, all the girls were out partying in the club. I should be out there drinking to try and meet them there,
Hmm.
instead of working on my grind, hitting the gym, maybe building a business. I think about how much time I spent in the bar that could have been spent really learning how to write copy, for example. So
Hmm.
I come into the game ahead. But it's not there. And then I wonder, then I get to a point where, I was very close, not close, I was close enough to become one of those permanently angry dudes. But then what would I have to show for it? And I realized, though, that I needed to up me and increase and improve who I was to have a better life. So there's that,
Yeah.
you know.
And I think that's a really good point is that, it is true. Kind of like one of the big things that came out of the 2016 election was the notion of echo chambers. And I think that is an easy trap to fall into when you're on the internet, is that it's like, you get so focused into just seeing what it is that you want to see. So you think of the world as, well, it's just this, our side, and then the counter side to it. So it's us versus them. And so I think it's really important to get off the computer, go out in the world, go actually be out there with people, mixing, mingling, interacting, and you have your eyes open to how really big and diverse and expansive the world really is, as opposed to just being locked
Absolutely.
into your little narrow view with a bunch of other folks on the internet or some keyboard warriors.
Yeah, that, and that's the other thing too, man. Like, hey, like, how old are you?
I'm 33.
Okay, right. So we're the same age. So we came up in that transition era. Like when you graduated high school,
Hmm.
unless you were like super wealthy, no one had cell phones. And then fast forward 3 years later, you're behind if you don't have a smartphone. Like, what the hell happened? Well,
Right.
not a smartphone, but you're behind if you don't have a cell phone. There was no social media when we graduated high school. 4 years later, Facebook has taken over MySpace, which is on its dying leg, and
Right.
it's just it was a weird transition. But what we carry because we came through that transition is we're the last group of quote unquote young men who remember a world where you had to physically interact with a person to facilitate a relationship with them. My best friends, two of my best friends, how we meet because we were talking trash about who was better at Marvel versus Capcom 2, and you know how
Oh
we
yeah.
settled it? We went to an arcade physically. You know,
Yep.
there was no, we didn't invite each other to play on Xbox Live or PlayStation Network because these things didn't exist. We didn't send text messages. We used AIM, but you had to call a person to make plans. Still, calling was still a thing, man.
Yeah,
You
the
know?
the terror of calling and not knowing if the person you wanted was actually going to answer or if it was going to be their parents. Like, hey, I'm trying to reach Becky, and it's like, who's this?
Oh, for
You know.
sure. That's something you don't realize till you talk to some of these kids. Because I've been in school with them. These kids are 20, 21, 22, never had to deal with that awkward, conversation with a girl's father. You're calling to talk to her,
Yep.
and it's just
Like,
it's a
who are you?
different world. So they have no idea what the world is like when you are not instantly connected. So there's no select pressure on these traits which force a person to, I guess, form a connection with a human being. Everything is the internet. Everything is Twitter.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we have more ways of communicating than ever before, but we've in effect become slightly worse communicators. And I think that
Yeah.
there's some good and there's some bad to the way it's gonna evolve and it's gonna transform kind of our society and culture into this thing, and no one's really sure where it's gonna go, how it's gonna play out. I'm a bit of a optimist at heart, so I think in the end it's gonna be a good thing because you look at things like the red pill community and it's a very strong resource center of knowledge that people can find, which I know I'm extremely grateful for it because having had my own frustrations in my own past and then coming across a couple blogs that really put me up on taking everything to the next level, I was just like my mind was blown. I was like, oh my goodness, like I'm super grateful that this is here and I can find it. So I think that's a positive side. I think, on the negative side, it's definitely going back to what you say about being able to physically interact with people because offline is how really where life happens. And so
Yeah.
how you manage that, and that's one of the things that I discuss with people when they're talking about online dating, is that when they're trying to do the online dating or do looking at profiles or apps, they're building this sort of kind of character of this person in their head based off of these things that they're reading and the bits of information that they have, but there's so much that you miss with the virtual interaction that you can't pick up or experience when you're actually physically there. So that's why most online dates effectively are a blind date. When you show up, you just
Yeah. Oh
have a
yeah. Yeah.
bit of
For
an idea.
sure. Man, it's weird to say, man. I've been with my girlfriend so long that I never made a Tinder account, and I was on, man. Look, if there was a way to hunt fast, I was using it. So let's not paint a picture like I was late to the party. Nah, man, it just wasn't. Tinder didn't become like my homie had to tell me what Bumble was because I never even I don't know when that happened, but I was clearly not using that shit since when it came out. But yeah, man, there's so many ways. Everything is swipe left, swipe right. I don't know if cats are still killing it with day game if they day game or not. But that was always more fun to go and talk to a person in person, man. There's just so much more that can happen.
Oh, I agree. And for me, it's like I like my favorite thing. I still think about being single. My absolute favorite thing is when you're with a girl and you know that you both know that sex is imminent. Like you and the girl both know that like it's gonna happen. And so my favorite thing is always that conversation that you both have before it actually goes down. Because you both are just like know that it's gonna happen. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be fun, but it's kind of like this is that sort of bullshit formality of the dance that we have to go through a little bit back and forth before it actually throws down. So for me, that's always one of my kind of favorite little things about a game is those specific conversations.
Yeah, it's a oh man, it's a good time to be alive when you're not negative. That is the
I absolutely agree. It's like what CMQ says a lot. You know, we do live in the greatest era known to mankind.
yes, yes. Like at the end of the day, man, like how can you be unhappy?
Yeah.
There's so many, there's so many ways. I mean, dude, I was thinking about this today, right? I I I do not bad online, not great, but like or rather I'm not like balling out of control. Like I'm not even close to a millionaire. I would never claim that. It's just not my thing. But the fact that I can earn money online is incredible, right? It's incredible that I can just sit and write and type and people like my words and it's a great time. Or I got an injury and I can just go. I'm going to get a consult on whether or not to get surgery to fix it, and they can fix it. It's an injury they couldn't fix 30 years ago. There's so many just cool things, and I want some food. I can go. I can just go in my fridge and heat some up, or go down a block and get some from the store already cooked, man. It's a great
Right, or have
era,
it ordered in.
I don't,
Yeah, no, and I agree with being able to make money online and the business side of it is great because there's a lot of different things that I'm out there trying and working with. And I remember I put out my ebook like 2 weeks ago, and I was just like, all right, I hope maybe someone like looks at it and buys it. And so I like went to bed and I woke up with all these notifications of people that had bought the book, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like this is a pretty cool, kind of awesome feeling where it's,
yeah,
people, I can be asleep and then people, still think that I have something of value to offer. And, there's only $5. So obviously it's not like, some guys are charging, 10, $20, whatever it is. It's like, hey, it's only $5. It's a short, quick read. But, I thought that, it was a pretty fun, kind of cool feeling to be able to say like, man, if I was to rewind the clock back, like, 15 years, this wouldn't even be a possibility for me to,
not yeah,
earn income
exactly.
this way.
I can't remember where I read it, but it was something to the effect of like, half the jobs available, or half the jobs that people are going to do in 10 years don't exist today, or something to that effect. And I think about that, like I never ever once imagined that I would make any type of living online because wait for it, there was no real online when we were kids. It wasn't when we were kids. No one was sitting around. When I grew up, I want to be an internet entrepreneur. Like, what the hell is the internet, kid? Like, it's that
Right.
kind of thing. and now it is very much a reality. I'm just
So one of the last things I want to touch on a little bit here is that one of the reasons why I've really enjoyed a lot of your interviews and your Twitter and following on your daily email list is that you're very open about kind of your past and sort of where you started versus where you are now. And so the kind of question I have for you is a little bit of looking at sort of your kind of past self and the sort of struggles and everything that you kind of had to go through, if you were able to kind of go back in time and just mentor yourself a little bit, would you what would your assessment be for, this is who Ed Lattimore at age 25 is, and this is kind of what he's going through, and this is how I would approach trying to reach out to Ed Lattimore at 25?
so you're asking like how I would grade myself at these different eras, or like what I would tell myself, like
A little bit of both.
um you know I would say I'll think about this generally, like advice I would give myself. I really think the number one thing of it, well, first of all, I have no regrets, but you got to understand when I say that, and I think when people say that, what they really mean is that they really enjoy the outcome and they wish they could attain the same outcome without some of the processes.
I agree a
And
thousand percent with that.
so when I say that, I'm very happy where I am today, but here are some things I wish I had never done. I'm not gonna lie. I wish, my personality, who I am, and my insecurities and what I had to learn to deal with, I should have never picked up booze. Never touched it. It's not for me. I mean, it's just not. I don't. But between, I have every single probably, personality trait that makes someone likely or more likely to abuse it, and it all came together in a perfect storm, especially in my mid 20s. And I was smart enough to kind of realize this. I drank a little bit and then I stopped for 4 years from 19 to 23, and then I kicked it back up full notch and almost ruined me. So there's that. I would have rather not dealt with that. I would tell myself to not put so much value on female approval. I put a lot of value on female approval, and then when I finally got it that I was doing that, I just went the other way. Now I was trying to act like I didn't care so much that it was just as damaging and just as ruining. I don't think I missed any girls that I would have formed a great relationship with.
Hmm.
But what I will say is this: it certainly almost ruined the greatest relationship of my life, which is the one I'm in right now. So I wish I had done that.
Hmm.
I would have started boxing earlier if I could somehow go back and talk to me. I would have picked up boxing, and I would have fought to box instead of play football. I would have done that, and I would have started fighting earlier. I think ultimately Tom is a serious dude, and you can't beat Tom, and I
Sure.
was fortunate enough to be able to do really well so far, and I wish I could have done more, but it is what it is. I
Hmm.
had a great run, and this is a very specific story that I learned from, so that like I know how to deal with money now. My dad died when I was 18, and he left me $55,000 in life insurance money. And in 18 months, I was broke. I was actually worse than broke. I was overdrawing my account. And to this day, I have no idea where the hell it went. It's not like I was drinking it or smoking it up or something. I was probably spending it on nonsense. I would have traveled so much more. Now I'm traveling a lot. Now I've been in the past 2 years, I've been to 4 countries, and I plan to really up that now that I'm done with school, and likely taking some serious, if not permanent, time off from boxing. Uh, I'm gonna just see the world, because the world is just a beautiful place, and you don't know, especially as Americans, we don't realize, yo, people are really different in other places, and just because you can talk to these cats on the internet, that don't mean that they are like you, and
Hmm.
you should go see and live and learn and just enjoy. I would have probably figured out the type of woman I wanted a little earlier too.
Hmm.
That would have saved me a lot of trouble. I got it. I hit it almost perfectly the second time, and this time, I mean, I really, I can't change much. I can't change anything about her that would not change other things that make her not a girl. In other
Hmm.
words, right? Like
Right.
like obviously it'd be nice if she was more emotionally reasonable, right?
Right.
But she's a girl. I can only expect so much, right?
Right.
Eh,
Well, no, I mean that's some pretty sound and fantastic advice there. And I think that it is important to be able to look at yourself a bit and kind of know where you've been, where you're going, um, and touching a little bit on your boxing because I think it's kind of a great metaphor for a lot of the fights that we have to deal with in life. A question
oh,
I've
for
always kind of
sure.
had is when you step into the ring, what is your mindset when you're getting ready to fight? Because there's always that mindset when you're training, but when it comes down to actual fight time and you're standing there getting ready to touch gloves, what's kind of the thought process or what exactly is in your mind when you're getting ready to launch forward into a fight?
Really, you're just trying to. Me personally, I just want to get hit real fast to make sure I'm not made of paper. It's really. No, I mean, because look, you figure like this, the skills are there, and your temperament is what it is, but you're nervous really because you think it's gonna hurt more.
Hmm.
The things that guys think about, are they gonna look stupid, and is it gonna hurt?
Hmm.
Well, I don't really care about looking stupid. That's never been my issue. I wonder, am I going to be able to take the damage? Because it hurts. I mean, and look, man, one thing that pro fighting has taught me that I don't think the average person realizes and appreciates: every single shot in a boxing match hurts. There are no nice shots in boxing. It doesn't happen, man. You can roll something off you, and I guess it's not going to hurt you that much. But no, it's a violent ordeal, and it hurts. But I want to make sure I can deal with that violence and not break down. So that's what goes through my head. I'm like, just hit me so I know it's gonna be good. And then after that, you're in there, you're figuring out the timing and the speed and the countering and how to get your feet right. So it really becomes fun.
It's a lot like dating or any other venture in life where it's you.
Oh yeah,
what
do they say? Just go get that first rejection. Go get blown out real fast. So you realize, oh, you're not made of paper. You'll be all right.
Well, no, this has been a very fantastic conversation. We're coming up on an hour here. So, how can people find you? What are you working on next, and what's the future for Ed Lattimore Hold?
Okay, so what am I working on next? I got some speaking coming up this summer. My next book, called Sober Letters to My Drunk Self, that's coming out, and I'm really excited. I put a lot of heart into that book. It helps people. It's a book that I wish somebody had given to me, pretty much. I mean, that's how I wrote it. I wrote it as if I was talking to me, dealing with the transition from alcoholism to sobriety and then on. So that was really important to write and do, and that's coming out next. I'm working on my first, course-ish thing and some writing and some traveling. I mean, pretty much you're just gonna see me, because now I have time to really get back to how I earned my bones in this game, for lack of a better term, which is blogging and writing and expressing myself via my website. So you're gonna see a lot more writing. My book's coming out soon. There's some speaking going on, and it's gonna be great. I'm excited.
All right, we very much look forward to seeing all these great things that you have come to fruition. For those of you that really want to find more on Mr. Lattimore, please check out his website, edlattimore.com, or you can follow him at Twitter. There's some fantastic stuff on there. But Ed, it's been a fantastic pleasure having you on. We couldn't have picked a better guest to kick this whole thing off with, so we really want to thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, man. I really appreciate you accommodating my change in schedule as well.
No problem. Glad that wasn't anything major that caused the delay. So glad that
you and me both. You and me both, man.
That is it for this episode. Thanks again for listening, and please be sure to check out alphajedi.com, as well as check out my ebook, Meet, Date, Sex, Repeat, the 4-step guide to mastering dating conversion in a week. It's only $5, literally costs less than a fancy cup of coffee, and is chock full of very good actionable information that you can use today in order to improve your dating game. Thank you all again, and we'll see you all on the next episode. Cheers.